Welcome to the Humans and Earth podcast. We bring you inspiration and practical resources for healing our planet and ourselves. It's time for soulful contributions that regenerate life on Earth. I'm Shara Arman, a thought leader and teacher who believes we're ready to renew Earth and heal ourselves in the process. You can find our work online at humansandearth.com and on Instagram at School Humans Earth. I'd love for you to be on our newsletter list and receive our updates on Instagram. Please share our work at the School for Humans and Earth with anyone you think might be interested, and leave us a review on Apple Podcasts or wherever you listen to this podcast so that we can include more and more people in the regeneration revolution that I believe is happening on planet Earth. Welcome to today's episode. Welcome back to Humans and Earth. I'm really happy today to bring you a conversation with Sam Pfotenhauer. Sam is a human design reader and intuitive guide. Through her business, Wild River, she facilitates spaces for inner inquiry and connecting to earth, body, and intuition. Sam is also an environmental lawyer. After graduating from Tulane Law School in 2017, she practiced as a securities litigator in New York City, but left that role in August of 2020 to pursue her environmental and spiritual interests. Sam currently works on a range of environmental issues, both in the private sector and in public service, but focuses on water-related issues and urban farming. Sam currently lives in Burlington, Vermont with her longtime partner and her cat. And you can find her at wildriver.live. Welcome, Sam. I'm happy to have you here today.
Thank you, Shara. I'm so happy to be here.
So you and I talked about just jumping into the pleasant, relaxing deep end and starting with a meditation. And I think that's a great idea. So why don't you lead us in that? And then, as you know, and I'll note for our listeners, what Sam's going to talk about after the meditation is how she got into this work, her combination of focuses as an environmental lawyer, human design reader, intuitive guide is really wonderful. So after the meditation, we'll be hearing how Sam came to be on this pathway and her perspectives on what we're working on right now as humans on planet Earth. But over to you, Sam. I'd love to do a meditation with you.
Amazing. Thank you. So, we're going to start with, let's say, about an 8-ish minute meditation to connect with Earth consciousness. So, if you are sitting down, that's great. Lying down, both are awesome. Shara, why don't we start with closing our eyes?
Okay.
And we'll just close our eyes and take a few deep breaths in through our nose, holding in our chest, and out through our nose. If there is any tension you can feel that you're holding, perhaps in your neck, your chest, your wrists, go ahead and breathe into that area. In this meditation, we'll be connecting with earth consciousness energy, supportive, nurturing, unconditionally loving, protective energy, always available to us. But the most important thing is just to still breathe. If you lose track of my words, what I'm saying, that's okay. Come back, connect to your breath. Envision with your mind's eye roots, roots reaching down from the bottom of your feet, from your ankle, the back of your legs. If you're seated, from your seat, but perhaps if you're lying down, from your back, the back of your neck, your arms. These roots are moving down to the center of Earth. They start with moving through whatever furniture, fabric you're seated on, down through the surface of the floor that your room is in, down through the foundation of the building. These roots make their way through the surface of ground, perhaps through grass or shrubbery or flowers, down through the top soils. Maybe it's dry where you're located. Maybe it's damp from summer storms. These roots pass by decomposed leaves. They pass by roots of grasses and plants, deep roots of trees. As these roots continue to go down the center of Earth, it's almost like they're melting into Earth, moving softly, gently down into Earth, rooting you into Earth, connecting you with Earth consciousness, connecting you in your body to Earth. The roots move down further into the clay, can be found a few feet under the Earth's surface, into richer soils. Then it moves through aquifers, groundwater, underground rivers underlying the sidewalks, the yards, the grass that we find ourselves on. These roots keep making their way down, perhaps through underground caves, down past crystals and granite. Remembering to take deep breaths, grounding ourselves with these roots. These roots keep moving further and further down to Earth. They're now passing through some dense rock. They're approaching and moving through the crystalline core. And they meet the center of Earth. The center of Earth, there's a river, a bright white river, a beautiful landscape. And this river isn't an ordinary river. This river represents Earth consciousness, Earth energy. This energy is loving, it's supportive. It is grounding, it is protective. You're overwhelmed, feel the gratitude in your body for Earth, being connected with Earth. And with every breath, you breathe in Earth conscious energy. That white light moves its way up through the roots. It moves up through the rocks, through the aquifer, through the soil, through the surface, moving up to your aura, and you're surrounded by white light. You may not be able to see this in your mind's eye, but you could feel it if you can't. This warm, loving vibration. This white light earth energy surrounds you. With this inhale, if you choose, you invite this earth energy into your body. And just take a few breaths, breathing in this earth vibration. I like to repeat some words connecting me further to earth. You may choose to repeat them if they resonate aloud or in your head. I am connected to earth. Earth is connected to me. I love earth. Earth loves me. I support earth. Earth supports me. We are one. We are one. We are one. Take a few more breaths, holding deep gratitude for this moment of time, for this relationship with earth, for the privilege of witnessing her beauty in our lifetime. The roots now melt away back into earth, always there for us, always available every day. And after taking a few deep breaths, Shara, we can meet back for our podcast recording.
Thank you, Sam. That was really nice. And I know listeners are going to really appreciate that because so many people right now are learning not only how to slow down, maybe in deeper ways, but what it means to actually connect to the consciousness of this planet. So thank you for that beginning.
Absolutely. I learned that meditation from Rachel Pfotenhauer, my aunt of Vast Earth, who I know was on an earlier episode of this podcast. And it's been, I probably learned it from her about 3 years ago, just from she shares it with everybody. And it has been so supportive for me. And now I share it with basically anyone I have the chance to. And it's been supportive too.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm really glad you shared it today. I have heard from a number of people who heard Rachel's interview, which I think might be episode 2 in the podcast, that they especially love that meditation, and you brought your own variations to it, which is really wonderful.
Thank you.
So, as I mentioned when I invited you, I am so curious about your combination of what we might call a conventional background in environmental law and a more holistic background in the other things you're doing. So I'd love it if you would start today by telling us, what are you doing? What are the services you're bringing to the world? And then maybe we'll move into the second part of that, is how did you get to where you are now?
Yeah, that's a great question. Thank you. So the first thing, what am I doing? And this has been really dynamic for me for the last year because, as you introduced at the beginning, I left my very traditional full-time job as a litigator at a white shoe law firm in New York, Davis Polk. And over the past year, at first, I just needed a break. Like I just needed some time to reconnect. And it's evolved a lot. And I've over really just the last few weeks kind of finally settled in a place where I expect to be for at least a while, like throughout the rest of the year for sure. So I have 2 lines of work. I'll start with my environmental legal work. I work with a company based out of Texas, an environmental restoration company. I was connected through them because the general counsel is an alumni of the firm that I used to practice at. And we were connected through a colleague when I was leaving the firm with this interest in environmental law and water. And we immediately connected. I immediately started working with them, just kind of like really just a few hours a week supporting them with different memos on a array of very interesting environmental issues. And the work now, I've kind of graduated into working with them about 3 days a week. And because of the sensitivity of the subject matter of the work, I won't go into any specifics, but it ranges from green infrastructure, Clean Water Act, soil sequestration, really understanding the regulatory component of these issues, the commercial components. How can we build out these environmental services in a way that is commercially sound, but retains all the integrity of those services? I really like it. I've always been really interested in environmental issues and never been pulled to the oil and gas side of stuff, but I've also haven't really found a great footing in fully public service oriented work. And this felt like such a great combination. I feel really aligned with the mission. Subject matter is awesome. People are great. So that really just ratcheted up into a kind of more of a pace recently. And then additionally, I also work with Tulane Law School's Water Law Institute. And I went to Tulane Law. My now colleagues there, but it used to be my professors, have always been great, very supportive of me. When I was a student, I was very involved with environmental law efforts at Tulane and wanted to build out, focus on, see how we could grow Tulane's involvement in urban farming. And so I work with students, I plan, conferences, anything that can create conversations and relationships that can help educate us about the needs of urban farmers and develop our knowledge and subject matter, then to hopefully eventually progress into doing much more service oriented work to support urban farmers. There's a lot of legal barriers to running an urban farm.
Yes, yes, so true. I keep going on mute because my beloved dog is here and she is really snoring. I may have to shift her position at some point, but yeah, that's so interesting. And I didn't realize until today that you were working with urban farming. I actually teach a sustainable agriculture class with a justice emphasis. And so I'm familiar with the basics. And here in Philadelphia, Philly is one of those cities with, I think, more than 40,000 pieces of vacant property and all kinds of legal impediments to people using that vacant land for food production in the urban setting. So I know it's a really, really important area and absolutely a growing area because we're recognizing that we need a food supply in urban areas and that there's available land. So I'm intrigued that you're working on that.
It is so interesting. There's such a need for it. I'm focused on New Orleans, where Tulane's located, and there are some amazing efforts in New Orleans. But of course, there's room for more. And part of it is just us understanding how can we be of service? Exactly what are the issues? Where can we be supportive? And then how do we build something that's sustainable, that can stick around? To serve that need. So I've been engaged with them for about a year, and we'll, be working with them. And I'm in like an advisory role, working with students, which I love. It's been a lot of fun to work with law students, for certainly the foreseeable future. So that is great, and I just feel so lucky to be supported and have people that are great mentors to me invite me into this and help me see what we can do. So then on the other side of things, I also have my own business called Wild River, and I do human design readings. That's something I've been really passionate about for about a year. I've been interested in human design. We can talk about what that is, since I'm sure a lot of people aren't familiar, for a few years. And then I also do all sorts of other offerings. I'm co-facilitating a group program, an 8-week group program with a dear friend of mine, Nadia Last, that is around kind of reclaiming or expanding our connection with our soul. I do kind of got like intuitive guidance programs, one-on-one work. Basically, how I like to frame it is using spiritual tools to facilitate inner inquiry. And when I say spiritual tools, I mean connecting with earth consciousness, Akashic records, um, reading heart energy, human design, although human design isn't exclusively spiritual, I think of it as, and using that as inquiry, inner inquiry, and then just creating a space for whatever's found to be shared. Because a lot of times, a lot of emotional health is just about being witnessed.
So true. I think the first question I have is, has it been hard for you to merge these two areas? I'm really curious about that. I mean, I'm guessing I'm probably about 15 years older than you, so a generation above you. I've always had holistic interests since childhood based on the family I grew up in, but I have found it quite challenging and taxing and vulnerable to learn how to be open and public about those holistic interests, given that I've also had a conventional career. So I'm really curious about what that's been like for you.
That's a great question. So it's been a mix. You know, when I was practicing at the law firm that I used to practice at, very traditional and large, probably 800 lawyers in the office that I worked in. And we were in a very demanding time in my department, which was a is a large department, and you could just tell people were tired. It's people at those places are working very hard. And so I decided to start hosting twice weekly a meditation and gratitude practice. And I asked for approval and I got it. And I rented a room twice a week and I emailed everybody, all the associates, not the whole firm, probably about 200. So just my group. And that was really scary. I was like shaking when I did it, but and not that many people would come, like, you know, 1 or 2 people, but I was met with a lot of support. People were very interested, they were curious. Mostly they were like, I want to feel gratitude and I don't want to feel overwhelmed. And if this tool can help me with that, I'm in. Like I'm interested. Or I know it'd be interesting, but it's really hard for me to even make 15 minutes. And that was surprising. I had a few people scoff. I remember one person saying, "It's really brave of you to admit to people that you like this stuff," and which is not ideal. But it started slowly. Like I would start with something like that, and then be met, and then I felt more brave trying more things. But certainly, I mean, when I first started talking about human design, it was nerve wracking for me, but I feel like my nervousness is more about feeling like, do I know enough to put myself out there rather than merging the two things? Because I just know that I actually think a lot of people in those spaces really benefit. But that said, when I'm in my legal spaces, I'm not telling everybody about my work. And that's a growth place for me to really own it in that way.
Yeah, and it doesn't fit in every context. Let's see, I'm just going to try to shift the body of the sleeping, snoring partner here and see if she's a little less loud. Yeah, I mean, the holistic things don't necessarily fit at every moment in every context. I think another thing that's changing right now is there's starting to be so much more science supporting the so-called holistic or alternative modalities, and that's completely changing the paradigm.
Yeah.
So how does it feel to you now to have a foot in both of these worlds? Does it feel like the just right balance?
It feels like the dream. Like I feel like it's the dream that I remember I used to say, gosh, I would like to practice law. I just wish I could do it half as much. And I never heard of anything like that before. I never heard of any place being okay with, sure, 3 days a week is okay. And that is, if we're really lucky that the company I work with is down with that. I think there's some advantages too for companies to allow that and be flexible, but it's just not a model that you see. When I started doing my human design work and my one-on-one work, I loved it, but there was a part of me that also missed the very intellectual and also more like the 5,000 feet view. Like, we're not thinking about individual people, we're thinking about regions or even bigger than that. And I like that mix of the both. The challenge is certainly switching from the brain side. Like yesterday, thinking about legislation, and then today hosting sessions and I did a tea ceremony, and it requires a lot of grounding, but that's a good thing too. I think it's requiring me to really lean in to my personal practices. And I think that's important as somebody. It's critical if you're hosting these spaces to be fully living it too.
I'm really intrigued to hear you say that, and it makes me want to talk to you again in 2 or 3 years, because I suspect that you practicing this dual approach to your work life, using all parts of your brain, is going to make you an incredible mentor for other people who are trying to do that. And it's really important because there are more and more of us, whether it's simply people who want to be more mindful and less freaked out during their workday, or people who want to go further like you and really be standing in kind of multiple worlds. It seems absolutely clear to me that more and more people are attempting that. And so I hope you'll keep talking about it verbally like you just did. I mean, that was so interesting, and I could relate very much to what you said. And then I suspect people are going to be seeking you out for mentoring on this, because I think it's our new thing, really.
Thank you. I agree. It just seems so ridiculous to me that you should have to choose. Like, why can't you know, be an accountant and an astrologist, or whatever the combination is? You could be as many things as you want to be, as long as you can, have the time to dedicate, you're not feeling overwhelmed. And to the idea that we should have to just pick one thing and then that's the thing that we're going to do, whether it's doing two things like me, which is awesome, or changing careers, like making pivots with some frequency and going kind of back and forth between the two. Like, I don't really see why that can't work either.
And feeling safe as you do that, because definitely I think a lot of people are still struggling with that older paradigm of, well, I trained in this and I committed to this career and it's kind of secure. And we're probably needing to help one another have the kind of flexibility that your life is displaying.
When I left the law firm, I was not open about, I want to go explore my spiritual practice. I'm burnt out. I like the things that I kind of had lined up. I were really just things to ground me in. Like, I wasn't going to go work somewhere else full time. And I wasn't totally upfront about it because I was nervous about being judged, and I was sensitive with it. And I didn't want to make people mad. And since then I've come clean, quite like to most of my colleagues. I'm like, oh yeah, I didn't want to work there anymore because it just didn't resonate. And I wanted to, spend some time reconnecting. And I was just talking to my old supervisor like 2 hours ago. We hadn't talked since I left, and telling him all about Wild River. And he's like, that feels like that's so you. And he's still at the firm. He's wonderful. Like, I can't wait to check it out. I'm so happy that you're following what you're interested in. But there was a point where I just had this idea in my head that everyone thought that, like, all this people who are more senior, you think that you should stay there and you should want to stay there, and they wouldn't be open to you taking a risk to find a path. And in fact, everybody's open to that. Even people, not everybody, but like overall, they're like, I love my job and I want you to love yours.
Really, I think that's true. And I feel that your path and you being vocal about it is going to give permission to so many other people. That's really powerful. I mean, I've definitely known plenty of people who kind of stay in that scared, discontent space, whereas you moved through it and claimed your truth and your authentic path. So I think that is really, really powerful. What about human design? I do know about it. I think it's really intriguing and a helpful tool. So I'm wondering if you want to tell our listeners a little bit about what human design is. And then my larger question is, how do you see it as being relevant to what's going on for humanity on planet Earth right now?
Excellent. Okay, I will. And I'm so excited to answer this question because I've been thinking about this. So, human design is a modality that was channeled by a man named Ra Aruhu, though his given name was Robert Krakow. He's from Canada. And the modality draws on several different ancient wisdoms, such as Western astrology, the Chinese I Ching, the Kabbalah tree of life, and the Hindu Brahmin chakra system. It If you're not familiar with human design, I always tell people like the closest way to conceptualize it is almost similar to an astrology natal chart because it uses your birth time, your date of birth, and your location to pull a chart about you. But it looks very different than the astrology natal chart. And the information that you get is different too. Human design, the way I use it as a tool for inner inquiry and for acceptance of other people, and that's how I teach it. It tells you, you know, the main roles that you're meant to play and the energy that you have to back that up, your gifts, places you're prone to insecurities, how you impact other people, how other people impact you, how you might be prone to personalizing other people's maybe emotional highs or their kind of like their stress and how you might amplify in your body versus places you maybe have access to your own energy in ways you really impact others. It's a tool that has like endless layers to pull back, but you can get a lot from just the basics, which is energy type, strategy, and authority. And, human design was the thing that made me think differently about my career. When I heard about it about 3 years ago, for anyone who knows about human design, I'm a manifesting generator. My authority's emotional. I have a 4-1 profile. And I learned about this and it told me manifesting generators are part of a type that makes up the majority of the planet called generators, where we are here to build and create. And even like old school human design textbook says work. We're here to work, but it's not necessarily like labor, like for compensation. It's outputting, it's creating. And manifesting generators are a flavor of that, where, we are here to do things that excite us, that we feel an authentic pull to. And what makes the manifesting generators different is we also are multi-passionate. We're likely to change our mind. We move quickly. It told me it's okay that I went to law school, that I clerked and I had this great job and I have all these amazing things set up, and I might still not want to be a lawyer. Because there's a point when I wasn't even sure if I wanted to be a lawyer. If the things that have come up to me I'm not sure if I would be practicing law or practicing it as much time, or like involved as much as I am now. Um, it told me it's okay to be interested in multiple things at a time. It's okay to move quickly with them. And then since then, it's opened up just like the floodgates. But to me, I found it to be very validating because it puts words to energy that I have been experiencing my whole life.
I like human design too. And I think you gave a really clear intro explanation of it. I think of it as confirmation, kind of as you just said, like, oh, I've always felt this was true about me, but I wasn't totally sure. And now I can see it in this chart. Confirmation, and then also insight and tools. So it has a lot to offer an individual on a self-development path. Do you see it as helping us? I mean, I think of the 21st century as a time when I believe we really are in a process of healing the way humans exist on this planet and regenerating our well-being and the Earth's well-being. Is human design relevant to that? Do you think, other than it's very helpful for individual self-development, which is the microcosm of that macrocosm I just mentioned?
Yeah, yes, for 2 reasons. The first is I think that a big part of healing the earth and even just having the energy to advocate, the energy. Of course, we know we can talk about personal responsibility, the things that we do at home, the resources that we consume, but it is so important also to be thinking at the larger picture, the corporate or business resources, the international or national decision making. It's very difficult to have the space to advocate when you yourself are overwhelmed in the way that you live. And if you're feeling out of alignment or you're exhausted all the time because you've been using your energy in ways that aren't affirming, or that aren't in alignment, then you don't really have the space for it. I think same goes with self-acceptance and acceptance of others. If you're so frustrated with everyone else, it's very hard to cooperate. And I can't think of any time where we need more cooperation, connection, and like believing that others are in their integrity than right now. And that's a great tool for that. So if that was it, that was enough. Now, there's an idea that someone just suggested to me, so I don't really have it well formed, but it's something I'll be exploring. And if we have this conversation at a later time, we can talk about it more. And that's the idea of generators. Type of human design. Generators are the fertile agents of the planet. What makes somebody a generator, this is 70% of the population, includes manifesting generators. So they have a defined sacral, a center. There are 9 centers in a person. And this is a really important one because it gives you a lot of energy. And it's the center of fertility. There's nothing more creative we do than create life. A human design teacher of mine, her name is Sam Zager, and she is like my favorite person to learn from. We were doing a session on Sunday night. We were talking about the connection between sacral beings, so generators and the planet. We were talking about how generators give the planet life force energy, that if generators aren't filled up in themselves, they're not saying yes to the things that excite them, which is how a generator operates. They don't have any other energy to give. And the other people that aren't generators need us generators for energy because we produce so much energy that everyone else borrows it. And it's really important for getting work done. If we're not getting enough, then everything goes dry around us. And she was putting this idea forth of, well, is there a relationship there with the planet of the earth and generators? It never occurred to me before. And I haven't fully thought about the energetics of human design in the concept of earth, but my gut reaction is, of course there is. Because if we are in an energetically dry place ourselves, that to me would be reflected in our environment, reflected in the way that we give, reflected in mirrored in almost all parts of things. And so for us to be able to have the energy to connect with earth, connect with each other, we would need that to be full. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I think that's really intriguing. And I hope you'll pursue that and talk about it, maybe do some writing about it. The first thing that you said was also really illuminating to me because I hadn't thought about how human design can help us find our best way to collaborate and cooperate with other people. And obviously that's true. I hadn't thought about that piece, but exactly as you say, whether we're talking about urban agriculture or permaculture or communities managing the effects of extreme weather, cooperation and collaboration, I think, are going to be 2 of the main characteristics of the 21st century. Human design helps us know our own styles and assets and less strong areas so that we can collaborate and cooperate better with others. I think it's really intriguing too, to think about the actual energetic relationship between different types of humans and the planet. And I would definitely love to feel into that more myself. And I hope you'll keep pursuing it.
Yeah, I agree. It never occurred to me before, but even with the connection, I always think like, I don't know if any HR company or HR department would allow me to do this, but gosh, I would love to pull the charts of everybody. If even just knowing there's different types of decision makers, the way people make decisions is differently. The way some people need a question to respond to. Others are going to be asking the questions. Some need ideas to respond to evaluate. Others come up with them. And to not be putting to just, even if I can't see someone's chart, just to have an awareness of all the different ways, because I used to think I used to just think, well, this is how I do it, so that's probably how they do. And
Yes.
I just didn't have the ability to think outside of that.
Right. And we judge our coworkers and our family members and get impatient with them. And I think you're right. A lot of it has to do with not recognizing, oh, they're actually built differently. Their approach, their set of assets and virtues is different. So, yeah, I would love to see this happen, that you're doing human design in any workplace or the environmental law workplace. I think that could be really brilliant.
I
So,
think it would be incredible to at my, my friend and I have talked about this before, but like, how can we bring human design into corporate workspaces? My friend Nadia, we collaborate in those spaces, or we both came from those spaces. You don't want to water down the system, and you don't want to empower people with information they don't understand, because you don't want it to be used incorrectly.
right.
But gosh, I mean, same with any sort of emotional or energy management. Like, how wonderful is it to know that, or to develop some language around that and to bring it in and just make it available?
Very intriguing. So something else I wanted to ask you is, you obviously have a lot of energy, you have a lot of different types of work and creative demands. And of course, many people are experiencing that type of lifestyle nowadays. What are your practices for connecting to Earth and the natural world and grounding yourself and regenerating yourself and your own energy?
I It always changes, but it hit me, and I think a lot of a lot of people, guests on your podcasts, I think speak to this, but it didn't really hit me until about May of 2020. I was living in New York City. So I was living in Brooklyn, knowing I need to connect with Earth and thinking, gosh, do I need to go upstate all the time? Like, I don't have a car. Do I need to be flying to Oregon for a week just so I can connect with Earth? And I was lying at Prospect Park on the ground, looking up at this tree, and it just hit me so quickly. Connect with me anywhere. You don't need to go anywhere. Go to your front yard, go outside, look at a plant. Like, I'm here. And I realized I was using that as an excuse, needing to go somewhere. So now my practice is, within an hour of waking up, get outside. And that is, for a number of reasons, get me started on the day. But getting outside, and ideally, I live in Burlington, Vermont, which means I live on this gorgeous Lake Champlain, and I can get to the lakefront in about 7-minute walking from my apartment. And if, for anyone who hasn't been here, it's this gorgeous giant lake with the Adirondack Mountains from upstate New York behind it. Burlington has a lot of outdoor areas that are accessible easily by walking, by riding. So even if I don't have a lot of time, getting to it, looking at it, and then just deep breaths. To me, it feels very simple. Like, it used to feel like I had to do something intense, and I don't. That's it. Get outside and spend time there. Now, the more that I'm engaging with other people's energy, I woke up today feeling tired, and I was like, maybe I'm not getting sleep enough. And I have just gotten into ceremonial tea ceremonies. I haven't studied it formally. I learned it from an amazing Akashic record teacher I work with, Danny Dillard, and it is so grounding. To me, that's a beautiful way to connect with Earth. You're connecting with water, with heat, with ancient, very precious tea, with beautiful materials. And one of the messages I got today is, the more space you hold, the more you need to ground. Like, duh. But it's not sometimes until you do it. So the more and more I've been holding space and guiding groups and providing these services, I need it, and I need it through Earth. Um, Tea is a big one. When it's cold outside, I like to draw my plants, or just connect with vegetable food, and really look at them and notice them. I think connecting with Earth, yeah, it includes getting outside, and that's like pretty critical for me, but it also involves appreciating Earth, the aspects of Earth in their kind of nearly pure form in my house, and seeing it as like a thread throughout the day.
Yeah, I love that, Sam. I mean, everything you just said, I think can be so helpful to people. Having the practice of getting outside within an hour of waking up. It's not so hard to do. It's a beautiful way to center your day. And the tea ceremony sounds wonderful to me. I am a great aficionado of tea. So I need to be a little more deliberate in my appreciation. But also, as you said, the more space you're holding, the more you need to ground yourself. And I'm emphasizing that to get our listeners to think about it again, because I think so many of us right now are really holding space for other people. We're supporting other people. We're holding a lot of space for ourselves because so many of us are on a pretty rapid personal spiritual development path right now. We're holding space for the earth, who's going through a lot. And I love that you voiced that. And again, I'm getting this feeling you're probably going to be a really important mentor for people in this practice of the more I'm contributing or supporting or serving, not the more I do, the more I need to do, but the more I'm contributing and serving, the more I need to be grounding down to earth as the support, my own inner guidance system, and maintaining that resilience. I just suspect that's something a lot of us need to keep developing. So I really love how you spoke to it.
Shara, I so agree. And it just, you don't always realize because it feels sometimes natural. And I feel lucky to have these opportunities to be holding space that, of course, I can't compare what I needed a month ago, 6 months ago, 12 months ago, because it all changes anyway. And so just ensuring that I have space, whatever it is, however long I can give myself. And it's the way to be able to continue to do whatever, any of you listeners are doing, whether you're holding space for a loved one, a friend, for yourself, to be able to do that and to stay, feeling strong in it, because that's what we want to feel.
Yeah, and it's so important for the human collective as well, because our workaholism has been closely tied to our abuse of the planet and ourselves. And learning to live in a more deliberate, grounded, centered, spiritually alert way, I believe is crucial to our path of restoring well-being for ourselves and the planet. So I really appreciate that you're helping lead the way with that.
One of the times I just hit me of like the path I was on and practicing at a law firm with the demands that that caliber of work require, is I was sitting on the subway and was going to work, and I was kind of thinking through my week, and I was like, I'm going to eat dinner at work every day this week, which means I'm going to have it delivered. Each time it's going to come in a plastic bag with all the plastic stuff. I need to pick up my dry cleaning because that's the type of clothes that I need to wear. I just, like, all of the resources that I was going to be needing to do. I'm not going to have time to go to the grocery store. Am I going to have it delivered? I can't go to the co-op to get stuff with that packaging. The lifestyle that I wanted to live, that felt good for me, needed time. It takes time to go to the grocery store, to cook, to do all of that. I have to be home to be able to do it. And this was pre-COVID. I was spending a lot of time in the office, and it just realized, like, this doesn't line up. I do think, yes, it can be possible to maybe hit those environmental things and be in the office. I never met anybody who did or really wanted to. It could be, but you would be taking a lot of time and to be able to do that.
Yeah, I appreciate that you voiced that. I think it's a dilemma a lot of people are experiencing, and it's gotten a lot more interesting after quarantine because, of course, more and more people were forced to work from home. And I think a lot of us realized it's a little easier to fit in your meditation or your composting or making your own sauerkraut or kimchi, or not having to go to the dry cleaner. So my guess would be we're going to stay in some type of a stage of re-examining the long, long hours at the office as compared to what feels like a healthy and sustainable home life, and what can we do better beyond the way we did it in the 20th century.
Yeah, I agree.
Well, Sam, it's just been totally delightful to talk to you today. And as we come toward a close, I want to invite you to speak to anything else that you would like to, or if you want to comment on kind of a big question that I often ask people as we conclude is, where do you hope we're headed as human beings on this planet?
First off, thank you so much for having me. This has been so fun, and I've loved connecting with you and speaking on here. I will answer, where do I hope we're headed? There is, to me, and I'm in a bubble for sure, and you know, I live in the United States, which is itself a bubble, but I find so many people in my life are re-examining their life path. Both me and my partner left our past. I don't know if it was like totally surprising for me. I was surprised for him. Many people in my life are re-examining their life path, and they're re-examining their relationship with the planet, and they're re-examining the way they spend the time, the way they support themselves. And this is happening across age groups too, which is pretty tremendous to see. I think the younger generation has a voice in this that is loud. I'm speaking to management of the planet. And my hope is that through a release of, by kind of grappling with how am I spending my time and where am I feeling in pain, there'll be a release of some of that and a greater like feeling of compassion and a greater focus on empowerment. I feel that in human design, an interesting thing is about to happen in 2027, moving the energy on this planet towards a lot more towards individualness and like community, but self-empowerment and my sovereignty. And my hope for that is that that'll inspire individuals to take responsibility fully for what they can do on the planet. I think the individual is amazing. I think people forget their own power. They don't realize their own. I do that to myself. I see in all my friends, like, you're powerful, and we diminish it. And so I tend to think that we are so caught up in all the other important things that are happening in our life and in our own pain, that we are losing sight of the impact that we make. It's up to us as individuals. Individuals are the ones who make changes that ripple. And so I've said a bunch of things, but I would say I hope we're moving to compassion and self-empowerment. And I think the best way to start that is being compassionate to yourself. And the best way to start that is thinking about, how would a higher version of yourself feel empowered? What's standing in the way? How am I judging myself for that? And start there, because usually that's reflected to others, how you're judging others. And that's what needs to kind of disintegrate for us to step into true compassion and empowerment.
So wisely said. I appreciate that very much. Sam Pfotenhauer, what a joy to be in conversation with you. You can find Sam at wildriver.live. And if you're enjoying these conversations on Humans and Earth, please follow us on Instagram at School Humans Earth. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you for listening to Humans and Earth. Please share this episode to broaden engagement in the regeneration our world needs. You'll find social media links in the show notes. To explore our other offerings, visit www.humansandearth.com.